and jacked up. Making stuff and jacked up.
So much.
Making stuff and jacked up. Making stuff and jacked up.
Let it go. He said, get out of the way.
Jacked up.
Get it, PJ.
Just eat it. Put it right on my gums. So much.
Somebody's killing these beats, y'all. Trust me.
You're listening to Meadows and Makers podcast.
With jacked up and making stuff. Peace.
Good morning for some, good afternoon for some, and good evening for some here on the Meadows and Makers podcast. Welcome to another week of the show. Thank you guys for coming and joining this whatever time zone you're in. So if I see we got Peachy Mod, we got Ron Dunn, we got Solar Miner here so far. Thank you guys for making it this morning. I really appreciate you guys being here. So, with some housekeeping stuff up front, I try to take care of all this up front, that the views and opinions that are expressed on this show are my own and those of my guests. This show is for education and entertainment purposes only. And so if you have any complaints or anything like that, any suggestions, things like that, please send them my way. And they do not reflect on the MSP waves in this interactive social broadcasting network that they've created here, and keep going, and all the wonderful people that are involved with that, and keep this thing operating smoothly. So thank you. So after that, I like to do my show mantra. And if you guys are for the, kind of for the recording, and for people that may be coming on the show for the first time, the show is a lot about trying to be inspirational and showing you neat projects that people are working on, maker type people, off-grid type people that are working towards their self-sufficiency and resiliency. So it can just be instead of all the negativity, a lot of the negativity that goes around in the world, just to kind of be a positive light on, the things that we can do to focus on and hopefully make the world a better place. And so that's what I wish to focus on, and our thoughts and what we focus on create our reality. So I think if we really focus on these things and push for the better world, then it'll happen. So I created a show mantra along those lines, and my mantra is, I will be an inextinguishable light of possibilities for myself and others. And that's just something that I say to hold in your heart, and things that you can tell yourself as a kind of an inspirational thing to keep you going. So with that said, I have a really neat guest for you guys today. It's somebody I came across on one of my curations, one of my weekly curations that I've been doing with MSP and the Meadows Support Project here. And he is a guy that has been working on building his own supercar. His handle is Project Supercar. And I really think that everybody should go check him out if you're not familiar with him yet, because he's doing a really cool project. He's put together this car all on his own, and he's built it from the ground up, and it's a really neat project. So let me drop his account in here for you guys so that you can check him out. So without further ado, let me bring on Project Supercar, and we'll get to know him a little better. Hey, Project Supercar, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just great. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today and being able to chat a little bit and get to know you a little better.
Yeah, no worries. I don't mind. I love talking about cars and anything in engineering, that sort of stuff.
Cool. So that's the first little thing that we'd like to go over is maybe tell us a little bit about how you made it here to Steemit and d.tube, and then a little bit about your background. If you want to share a little bit about yourself with the audience.
Sure, no worries. Quick background. I left school and I became an engineer apprentice. So I learned about machine work, working with metals, that sort of thing. And I've always had the urge to build my own supercar from very young, from like 3 years old onwards. I've always wanted to do it. So I worked hard, saved up a lot of money, and eventually I got enough money together so I could start the project. So there was a few areas that I wanted to go over when I was building my own supercar. It had to be easy to work on, easy to maintain, easy to build. It had to be fast, reliable, whole host of other ideas that I wanted to incorporate into this thing. So I got a garage. I mean, I live in the UK, so we don't have a lot of space over here.
Yeah.
So I had a shed and a garage, and I bought some steel, and I bought an old Audi estate as a donor car. So that had a V6 in it and some other bits and pieces that I need. So I took the old Audi estate apart. Took about 3 months to do, just to take my time, and then had to label everything up, and then I had to categorize everything. And then I started to design the chassis, plan it all out, build it, all that sort of stuff. So I got to the stage where I'd actually managed to build a complete running and driving prototype. There's some YouTube clips of me driving it up and down the street with no bodywork on it. So it does drive, it does steer. It's got electric windows and they work. Heating, all that sort of stuff. So it all works. And I had a few little problems about, I don't know, nine years ago or something, I suppose. And I had an accident at work, which meant I couldn't walk for a couple of years. And unfortunately, I lost all my money. So the project was stopped. It got pushed into the garage and it just sat there gathering dust. And, pretty miserable.
Yeah.
Wasn't able to complete the dreams.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
But I'm giving it a go. I'm giving it a second attempt. I've built a workshop in my back garden. So I had to take the shed down and build a workshop. And I'm having another go at it. So, but this time, I'd like to share it. I thought other people might be interested and, get involved and see if I can actually finish this thing. So yeah, I am on YouTube. YouTube's got its problems. I think a lot of people know that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's a major problem. So I looked for other platforms. I'm on BitChute, and I thought go on d.tube because cryptos is another interest of mine. So yeah, that's the reason I've ended up on d.tube, and I'm getting great views on d.tube, and people are clicking like and all the rest of it. I'm getting way more views and likes on d.tube than I am on YouTube.
Well, that's excellent.
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. I mean, it's good because if other people like what you do, and they give you nice comments and click on your videos and all that sort of stuff, it gives you motivation to get it done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked a little bit before the show about some ideas on how you can, maybe raise some funds for keeping this thing going. And we talked a little bit about our home base little crowdfunding foundation here through Steemit, and I'd love to help you get started with that and try to see if you can finish this thing and definitely make this something real. Finish your dream.
I'd love to. I mean, if anyone's listening and they can help me out in that area, get in touch. I mean, any help is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, the idea of this car is twofold. Okay, I've always wanted to build my own car, but there's another part to it. Now, I'm not rich. I've never been rich, and I'm never really ever going to afford these fancy supercars for £250,000, £1 million, that sort of stuff. And neither are thousands or millions of other people out there. So they're always going to. How should I say this? They're going to live their life, and they're never going to have the experience of having their own supercar, something exotic, something that's exciting, something that they can call their own. So I've always had it in the back of my mind that if I could finish this car, then perhaps I could put it into production as a kit, so other people could build it themselves, and then they could have a taste of something special, something that they could own, call it themselves, and just go into the countryside on a country road. That's my dream, by the way, is to go on a countryside, go down the country lanes, the sun, and all the rest of it, and someone in the passenger seat to, enjoy the experience. It's sort of like one of my dreams. It might sound a bit crazy to some people out there, but it's something I've always wanted to do, and but yeah, the idea is if I could finish the car, then I'd have something, a finished prototype, and then maybe put it into production, maybe get a company that could make the chassis for me, and then someone to build the bodywork, and then maybe other people out there, they could build their own, and then build sort of like a club, where we've all built our own cars and we've all put our own little spin on things, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy.
No, absolutely, man. I think that's you're talking to the right guy with the
Okay.
going off grid and all that kind of stuff. And we talked a little bit about maybe some guys around your area. We got Pensive that's here on Steemit that's big into into doing that kind of stuff, and he helped me out with my crowdfunding for my project. And I'll definitely be getting you linked up with him, and I'm on your side to help you get this thing going, man, and get you started, maybe get some crowdfunding going here in the cryptocurrency space. And this is excellent. I ran across you, and I saw that, I was like, it looks like you started last year, or probably around September, and you joined Steemit.
That's true. Yeah, I think that's when I joined Steemit around that time. I mean, the project itself is a few years old now. I think I started this project in 2006.
Okay.
YouTube didn't really even exist back then.
Yeah.
Cryptos.
Yeah. So you learned how to do all the video and all that stuff from the ground up, huh?
I had to self teach myself. I had to teach myself everything. So, you got to teach yourself how to edit videos, how to do filming. I had to teach myself GIMP, so I could do some stuff on that. I mean, I'm okay on GIMP. I'm not brilliant. And then I used a bit of Photoshop, and I had I just ended up doing everything. So
the videos look great, man.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks for that. I work hard on them. I try and make them entertaining. And I know there's a bit of an echo in my workshop, and the sound isn't the best, but I'm on a budget.
Hey, man, that sounds good. So,
So
yeah,
yeah.
it's great. It's the same thing that I've had to do, and yeah, your videos look really tight, and they're really nice, man. It's yeah, I ran across your post, and I was like, man, this guy, more people got to know about this guy because you're doing something really neat.
You
So
just
yeah,
got to do it yourself. That's why it's called DIY supercar. All every video it is, it's all DIY. I mean, I did the whole car myself. The only areas that I had to get a third party in was some of the machine work, but I would design the machine work, go to a machine shop, they'd make it for me, and then obviously I'd fit it to the car. Just because I don't have a machine shop, it's not like everyone can have a machine shop in the back garden. Lathes and milling machines.
yeah,
But,
yeah. That was going to be my next question. Was if you did all
yeah.
the fabrication yourself, did you, did you weld up that entire
Oh yeah.
chassis and everything?
Yeah, the welding and everything is all mine. I had to do all that. All the body work, all the woodwork and the roof and everything. That's all my own fabrication. In fact, that body work and that roof, the whole lot, it took a year to build, and that's a solid year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not like a year passed. I was working every day from about 9:30 in the morning to 11 at night, and working on that bodywork, and it took a solid year to do it, because it's not just the outside skin of the bodywork. You've got to think about the inside, the shut lines, how the doors close on themselves. There's a whole host of other things, how the hinges work. All this had to be figured out, and but yeah,
Yeah.
it took a year to do bodywork.
Wow. Wow. So what was that process? How did you make like a mold from foam and do the fiberglass shaping, or how did that process go?
Yeah, well, that's one way. You can build it out of foam, and a few people have done that. But what I find is if you build it out of foam, is if you look down the center of the car, both sides have to be exactly identical.
Yeah.
If you build it out of foam, especially if you're doing it by hand, it's very difficult to get both sides of the car to match. And if you don't do it right, you can tell that the car is not pleasing to the eye. So I couldn't really go down that route. Plus, all the panels I made were functional. So like the rear clam actually works. Even though it's a wooden plug, it does actually lift up with hinges and all that sort of stuff. So I had to make functional plugs, if you like. And the only way to do that is to make the internal skeleton out of plywood. And I think the technique is called like the fishbone technique. So if you look at a fish and you take away the meat of the fish, you see the fish bones, if you like, in the fish. So you end up making
sections, like cross sections.
That's it. Yeah, you make cross sections. You make one half of the car. Then you basically, once you've done one half of the car, you can trace around it, and then you make the opposite side, if that makes sense. And then you put them together, and then both sides are exactly the same.
Ah, okay.
It's not. And,
Yeah.
I've made it, but that's the technique, and that makes sure that both sides of the car is the same.
Wow. Now, how did you do that process? Did you have to take and print out your shape, I guess, and then route it out in the plywood?
Yeah, very difficult. Again, I was on a budget, so I would have loved to have had it done on a computer and then cut out, but the budget wasn't there. So what I ended up doing is I made the shape of the car out of wire. It was actually welding wire. So you make the outside frame of the car using welding wire, so you can sort of visualize the lines of the car, and then you make a cardboard template that matches up with those welding wires. And then once you've got a cardboard template and you like the shape of that, then you transfer that onto some plywood. and I used marine plywood because it's more stable. So you had to use quite good quality plywood. So you transfer it onto plywood, and then you make 2 copies out of it, and then you put it together. But if you use welding wire and you tweak or bend the welding wire, it forms a natural curve. So rather than trying to draw the lines of the car, because your hand won't be straight and it won't look fluid. So if you use the natural bend in the welding wire and you just sort of, clamp it on 2 ends, you get a natural curve, and that's how you end up getting some natural lines into the bodywork of the car.
Wow,
So,
that's very cool.
Yeah, that's how it was done.
Did you have to make a jig to bend the wire, or
Yeah.
how did you do that?
Some of them, yeah. I used screws, MDF, and I sort of put the plywood, and I used a bit of cheap MDF. You can use cheaper woods for jigs, that sort of thing, temporary jigs. You use a bit of MDF, and then you just sort of use screws, and you sort of pin it down until you get the desired shape. It's difficult to sort of describe. I wish I had some pictures. I mean, on my YouTube channel and d.tube channel, I will be going into detail on how I built the bodywork, and I will be showing pictures. So it'll give people a better idea of how I made it. But I try to let the wood itself flex and give me the curves that I want. So
yeah, that's incredible. So how many sections did you have to create to do this fishbone thing?
Too many. Oh, wow. Trying to think. Oh, wow, yes. Few hundred. There's a few hundred in there. And they have to be the same both sides. And that was the tricky part, is making sure both were the same. There was multiple measurements going on. The amount of measurements I had to use, and I was using plumb bobs, tape measures, triple sort of measure it, check it, and measure it again before you put that piece of wood in the position you want it.
Wow.
But yeah, it's
like a plumb bob, like attached to your garage ceiling or something like that.
Yeah,
wow.
I had to. Plumb bob. I used piece of wire, piece of string, and it was what did I use? A wheel nut. Yeah, just as a weight.
That's so That's so fascinating. I have a buddy of mine that did construction his entire life, and he showed me the power of the string for measurement purposes, and there's so many things that you can do with a piece of string. That you can find your plumb, and then you can do your level. You can find square. You can do all that with just a piece of string.
Yeah, you really can. It's amazing. I mean, I didn't have the money for lasers and all that sort of stuff, and big expensive machines or anything like that. So yeah, it was all string work, but it worked because once I finished the car, measured it. It's absolutely spot on. In fact, I measured the chassis when I designed this. I don't know if anyone listening in understands welding, but when you weld metal, you can get a little bit of shrinkage in the weld, and it can pull the 2 pieces of metal in together, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So it's very difficult when you're welding and you're building a chassis. I have an overall length of the chassis and an overall width of the chassis, so I have to sort of engineer in the shrinkage. So even though this is the prototype chassis, once I finished it and I measured the width is absolutely within 1 millimeter correct, and then the length of the chassis is only 4 millimeters shorter than it should have been. And I was quite proud of myself with that.
That's pretty good for just using some string, man.
Yeah, using string and a couple of spirit levels that I got from B&Q and Wix, at hardware stores in the UK. But, that's all I used.
That's incredible. I think there is something to say about kind of going back to those, not using the electronics. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like made us not as creative, I guess. But But
Yeah, I hear what you're saying on that. People are too dependent on the machines, and they're losing the humanity, the human touch. If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, and you have all these beautiful works of architecture in the ancient world, and all these things, and a lot of them are using more of the kind of. It seems like they flow more with nature, and some of the shapes and ways they did things are just incredible. And I think we create a lot of things that boxes now.
Do. When you take a look at some of the modern buildings that are being built, you think, "Oh my word, what are they doing?" It's like goes against humanity. You look at the buildings like 500 years ago, 300 years ago, or even 100 years ago, and they're just so more majestic, and there's just so much soul put into them. But then you look at the modern buildings today, and think, "Oh, and these concrete council blocks that people live in, it's so depressing."
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, yeah. So you're over there in the UK, and I saw one of your YouTube videos where you were. I guess you have an Audi that you said you have an Audi that's you're using as your kind of like your parts vehicle for the car.
That's right.
And you guys, I guess you disabled the brakes, and then you had to get your neighbors to come help you push it out and angle it back in just the right way. It looks like super tight, your little garage there.
The first donor car that I used, well, I have to back up a little bit. When I started designing this car, it was back in 2006, and the donor car that I actually wanted to use was still a very nice car, if you know what I mean. Still an expensive car. I mean, there was still, it was like, say if you bought a 3-year-old Audi today for, I don't know, 20 grand, you wouldn't really want to chop that up and build a kit car out of it.
Right.
So I couldn't use the donor car that I really wanted to use, which was the twin turbo V6 one. So I used an older one, which was a 2.8 V6, so I could build a prototype. So yeah, so I in fact, there's 2 donor cars actually in this car so far. I've got a blue Audi 100, Audi 100 Avant, which is an Audi A6, which was the first one, which is a 2.8 normally aspirated quattro. There was a Ford Cougar, and that gave up the roof. So there's a Ford Cougar roof in there, and the windscreen and side glass. But now I can afford the donor car that I originally designed this car for, which is the Audi A6 2.7 twin turbo.
Okay.
So I bought one. I actually bought it a few years ago for about £1,500, which isn't a lot.
Wow.
I actually used it. Yeah, it's cheap for a twin turbo.
Yeah. You found a steal there, huh?
I know. I did. It was cheap. Well, the problem we've got in the UK is that those sort of cars, people can't afford to put petrol in them, and the insurance is high, and the road tax is high on them, because you get taxed in the UK depending on the size of your engine or CO2 emission.
Oh, wow.
So these cars depreciate down to like nothing, So yeah, I picked one up for £1,500. I used it as a daily driver, and very quick.
Wow, so it wasn't damaged or anything. It was 1,500 pounds just as it sat, huh?
Yeah, it had MOT on it, and it was completely ready to go. The only thing that I did do is I don't like to drive dangerous cars, so I replaced all the brakes on it just as a matter of course. So I put new pads on and new discs and all that sort of stuff, so it was safe. New wheels and tyres. I thought I'd just put some new tyres on it because I didn't like the old tyres. But yeah, I used it as a daily driver. Put steel in the back, mechanical parts because it was in a state. And I was using that. And the plan was to use it as a daily driver until I needed it as the donor. And I would just take the engine out and all the rest. But then one of the turbos sprang a leak and squirted engine oil all over the place. And then smoke was coming out of the engine bay.
Oh, no.
And I thought, oh, God, do I pull the engine out and fix that turbo? And I thought, only just, to put it all back in again, knowing that I'm going to strip this car down. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. So
yeah,
I and I left it on the driveway for a few years. And I bought another Audi just to drive around in. I like my Audis, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I see you're an Audi fan. Yeah.
yeah, I love my Audis. And but yeah, the silver, the 2.7T was sat on my drive for so long. The brakes seized,
Oh,
and yeah, just rusted on, seized. I couldn't push the car, and it got stuck. It got stuck in my carport. I had it would run, okay,
yeah.
and I could get the car to pull itself around, even though the brakes were seized. And I got it half out of my carport, half onto my driveway, and then the engine conked out. And then that was it. It wouldn't start again. I thought, oh no, I can't close my carport. The car's stuck in the middle here. The brakes are seized, so I can't even push it. And I ended up having to pull all the brake pads out. So I took all the brake pads out. And then I knocked on all my neighbours' doors and I says, look, can I borrow you for half an hour?
Yeah.
Can you push this thing for me?
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, I should have offered him some beers and a little hangout.
Yeah, no, I said beers. I said beers or coffee. What do you want? We've got some good neighbours where I live. We're all good friends, if you know what I mean. So
Cool.
we've all done favours for each other.
Hey, that's your start of your car club right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Some of the people in this street, they're retired now, and they are engineers. I mean, they're retired engineers. My next door neighbour is a retired engineer. I think he's 86, 87.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, he's telling me all his stories that when he got his first company car, he didn't even have a heater in it, let alone a radio.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he had those. He had the 260 air conditioner. Roll your two windows down, go 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, and it was lucky if you could wind your windows down. He's a good old soul. Next door neighbor.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like they'd be fun getting involved in a little car club or something too.
Yeah, they're all interested in the project. They've all come down here and they've all looked at me, you know, and thought I was a little bit crazy, but they understand, you know, they're all engineers, they're all, you know, retired engineers. So, and we've got one guy at the end of the street and he's doing his motorbikes up and his Ford Populars from the 1950s and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, we're all you know, sharing each other's tools and that sort of stuff. So it's a nice street where I live, I must admit.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, and I see that you do a lot of walkthroughs. You do like a minute walkthrough video on like different types of cars. Do you guys do car shows often around your area, or is there a car club around your area that you're involved with?
There used to be locally, but there isn't any more. I think it's a sign of the times, or should I say the sign of the economic downturn. But a lot of these car clubs have, you know, fizzled away. Yeah, I mean, I used to go to loads throughout the years. I'd go to one every month virtually. But now, I think the last one, I mean, I always try and go to the kit car show in Stoneleigh. That's obviously the case. And because, you know, I'm really fascinated with self-built cars.
Yeah.
And anything interesting, something unique and weird. You know, I love cars with character.
Yeah.
So I go to the car show, but there used to be 3 of those a year. It used to be big shows, but we're down to 1 now. So there's only like 1 kit car show a year instead of 3.
Okay.
I take some pictures. You know, if I see something really interesting, I'll take a quick 1-minute video of it and put it up on my channel, and hopefully, you know, get people talking about it, get a conversation going. And I love to hear what other people, you know, what other people's thoughts are on certain cars, you know, and I just like talking about cars in general. So
yeah, so speaking of that, are you a classic car guy, or are you since you are a supercar guy, are you totally into just the supercar aspect, or all kinds of different classic cars?
All kinds, really. Anything with character, anything that is different, you know, something that breaks the mold. That's what I like.
Yeah,
I mean,
those old 3-wheeled Morgans are super cool in my opinion.
I love them. Bags of power. bags of character. Not so much power though, but bags of character. But yeah, the 3-wheel Morgans. I mean, I like Morgans. The plus 4, I think it is. I think my favourite cars are, well, depends on the country. I like Italian cars from the 70s.
Okay.
American cars from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good era.
It was. I mean, wow, the Americans, they come out with some fantastic stuff. I mean, some of the stuff they made in the 50s wouldn't even be allowed today with all the regulations. It's sad. That's why all modern cars, they all look the same. There isn't anything with any,
Yeah, in the 50s, they were trying to make everything look like space age. Or I guess like later in the 50s, they were making things look like Jetsons cars and stuff.
That's right. Big fins and bags of chrome and yeah, fantastic. That's what you want. Something with some flavour. But
yeah. Yeah, so that kind of comes into one of our audience's questions. Rondon asks, what do you think about the electric cars?
The electric cars. Now, I like the early electric cars because, I mean, from the 1900s. Now, I do.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
Yeah, when because I don't know if people know, but it was, I think.
Didn't Edison build some electric cars?
Yeah, I think it was. I think the first car was an electric car from. Oh no, the first ever car was steam powered. That's right. I think it was steam powered. It was a 3-wheeler thing, great big thing with a steam tank on the back.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think someone made an electric one, and then after that, there was then the internal combustion engine. So I love all that. The only thing I don't like about sort of modern day electric cars is I believe in the free market. So
yep.
I think that electric cars should stand with internal combustion engines in the free market and not get special treatment. So I'm a bit off on that. I just say, look, can we have a free market? So that's the only thing I don't like about the electric cars. I mean, the idea of electric cars is fine.
Yeah.
On an engine, if you look at the engineering side of things, some of the electric cars can be quite dangerous with the high voltage and the lithium batteries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do tend to research a lot of things. I mean, I don't watch TV anymore. I gave up TV years ago. So
yeah.
I end up,
same boat.
yeah, it's just propaganda nonsense. It's nothing to watch. It's just garbage. So I end up just spending the evenings online and I start researching stuff. So I look into the electric car and the internal combustion engine. I mean, I just put this point out there that people might not know that fossil fuels doesn't actually exist. Fossil fuels was always a theory, and it happens to be an incorrect theory.
Okay.
So fossil fuels isn't fossil fuels; they're actually abiotic hydrocarbons.
Okay.
So, and oil itself.
So they're not dinosaurs.
Nope.
Oh man!
And then even the, of course, I mean, the thing with the fossil fuels, you see, yeah, they came out with the idea back in the early 20s or something. Yeah, it was dinosaur bones, and then of course that was debunked. Because science catches up. You see.
Yeah.
And so science can then do the experimentation to see if it's bones that created fossil fuels, and then scientists came back in the 50s or whatever and says, nope, we've done the experiments, it wasn't bones, it wasn't fossil bones. So then they came up with the idea that it was plankton and this sort of thing that died, sank to the sea floor, and this has been heated up over millions of years, and that's what's caused or made fossil fuels.
Uh-huh.
But that's incorrect. And what's happening is that the scientists in Russia saying no, oil is actually made much, much deeper in the Earth's core, and it's got nothing to do with biomatter. Because I think the theory goes that it's the calcium carbonate in the shells of these sea creatures that is superheated and then is then converted into oil.
No kidding.
But the problem is where did these sea creatures get the calcium carbonate from in the first place. And of course, it's a mineral, and they got it from the ground, which is deep, deep underground. So you don't even need biomatter for the calcium carbonate because it's already underground anyway. So the calcium carbonate is already under the ground. You've already got the intense heat. And then you start looking at other things where NASA is making claims that they've found fossil fuels, and I use the term fossil fuels in quotes, on Titan, which is a moon. I believe it's Saturn, I think it is. I think it's one of the moons of Saturn, and it's called Titan. And they've found methane on there, lakes of methane and fossil fuels. So people are like rubbing their chins and going, okay, so finding fossil fuels on another planet or moon. Are you saying there used to be dinosaurs there or sea creatures? And of course, NASA's being quiet on that.
Ah, yeah.
And then you find that, the oil fields that ran dry in the 70s.
Right. They said we were going to run out.
Yeah, peak oil. I mean, they've been banging on about peak oil for the past 50 years.
So what you're saying is it's just a process that Earth does, and it's a regenerative thing.
It's right. I mean, as long as the Earth's core continues to rotate and be super hot, which will go on for billions of years, and there's enough calcium carbonate already in the Earth's crust, then the Earth will continue to make oil. In fact, oil happens to be the second most abundant fluid on the planet, and the first being water. Mm-hmm. So when you start looking at the facts, and fossil fuels aren't fossil fuels, they're abiotic hydrocarbons. And another thing is...
So when you say abiotic, could you explain what that means?
Yeah, abiotic means without biomatter.
Okay.
So think of like atheist and theist. Atheist means
without.
So abiotic. So if I said it's biotic hydrocarbons, then it's based on biomatter. So if it's abiotic, it's without biomatter.
Gotcha.
So there's no biomatter in oil, and it's made much deeper. Again,
wow.
This is
that's kind of mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I discovered this, I was like, wow, and then you start looking into the oil itself, and you realize that it's massively overpriced. And you've got all these governments.
They've turned it into diamonds, artificial scarcity.
They have. They've absolutely. I mean, the manipulation of the price of oil. I mean, they're pulling oil out the ground. This is per barrel, and I think the most expensive is like $8 per barrel. That's a barrel. That's not a gallon. A barrel typically has something like 42 gallons in it.
Yep.
And I think Libya is even pulling it out the ground at 50 cents a barrel, so that they can pull oil out the ground at 50 cents for 42 gallons of oil, and then they're selling these on at $75 a barrel or something. That's some serious markup. And then in the UK,
and then you got all your taxes on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we get hit with 60% tax, and then we've got VAT, and I think in the UK it's like 45p a litre petrol, but the rest of it is tax, and it's like £1.25 or something.
Yeah.
So if you take away, or going back to the free market again, if you take away the manipulation and the corrupt governments, if you like, working with the oil cartels and pushing the price of oil up, if you take all that away, and you realise you could run your car, or in the UK, typically it costs about £2,500 to £3,000 a year to run a typical family car in the UK. You take away all the manipulation of the price and you take away the tax, it comes to about 200 quid. So you could run your family car for about £200 a year, take away all the manipulation, and that is really cheap.
Yeah, it definitely could be different. Rondon brings up that, you still have to go through a lot of refining processes. You have to transport it. You have to do all that. But if there was no manipulation on the market, then it should be a lot cheaper. And without all those regulations and everything on it too.
Yeah, I mean that chap is completely correct.
Yeah, inertia says peak oil is manipulation, but you can still have peak oil if demand exceeds the supply. Supply can be affected by extraction technology not keeping up with the demand, but then it gets more expensive. So then the free market responds, and it can bring those prices down. So that was very well written.
That's completely correct. I mean, those points are correct. I mean, the thing with the refine, you can refine the oil, and to turn the crude oil, to give you an idea, just to break down the 42 gallons per barrel, I think 16 gallons of that is converted into petrol, and then the rest is converted into diesel, and then other materials that's used in plastic, and that's also used in paving the roads, that sort of stuff, tarmac, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the 16 gallons of petrol out of one barrel, and then you look at the cost of refining, then you'll find it costs about 5 times the cost to refine oil into petrol that it does to clean water. And then you go, okay, then, so what does it cost to clean water in the UK? And it's basically for 1,000 gallons of water in the UK, it costs £5. So it gives you an idea that the actual refining into petrol is minimal. The cost is very, very small. Although, of course, it does add to the price, but it's just a couple of pennies overall. But I mean, to give you an idea, the price of petrol in the UK is 45p a litre without the tax, but only like 3 pence of that is for the forecourt that sells petrol.
Yeah.
So they're only 3 pence on the litre that's sold. The rest of it is
right. They make nothing on the sale of it. Yeah.
Nothing on it. That's right. It's cut so thin. It's cut. But again, I want the free market. If we can have a free market and see the true cost of oil, and then going back to electric cars, I want to see the true cost of running an electric car. So, and you've got to look at when you're talking about cars as well, you know, the internal combustion engine compared to the electric engine, the electric motor.
Yeah.
Got to look at the overall life of the car. So, how much did it cost to make the car? What's involved? You know, the running costs and all this, and then recycling the car at the end. So you've got to take all that into consideration. But I would like the free market. I would like a free market and just let everyone decide. I don't like subsidies. I don't like the government gaming the system and giving subsidies to people who buy electric cars. I don't think that's fair, especially when I get penalised for driving a petrol car. I mean, I'll give you an idea of the free market. Is my car, my daily driver is a 3.2 V6. It's a petrol car, and I have to pay £345 a year road tax for that thing. But if you've got someone with an electric car, they don't have to pay any road tax.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, that's not the free market.
Yeah, it's actually becoming a thing here in the United States, and I got involved in my local politics for a little bit, and got to meet some people from our state representatives, state senate, and they are trying to they just passed a new gas tax here because they are lacking the taxes from people converting over to electric vehicles. So they add that tax, you know, when you fuel up, that road tax is added to our gasoline over here, and they're getting less less funds input from the people that are driving electric cars. So they're having to raise the prices on everybody else that's using gas vehicles. So,
and that's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting another a heavier burden on people that can't afford the electric vehicles right now too. So
that's right.
So
and I think I even heard of news. I think it might be California doing this. I'm not sure, but I heard that California were going to start taxing electric cars, the owners of electric cars, and it was based on the tax that they weren't spending if they used gasoline. So they're going to start taxing electric car owners anyway. I mean, this is the thing: is you've got to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, they're going to get their money somehow.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
People are jumping into electric cars right now because they're going, oh, look, the government's giving me subsidies. The government is not taxing me and they're subsidizing electric and all this sort of stuff. So everyone's going to jump into the electric cars. And I guarantee in 5-10 years' time, say 10 years' time, if there's too many electric cars on the road, then the tax is going to come up. They're going to start hitting you with all the extra tax. I mean, not to mention the fact that the national grid can't even cope with all these electric cars anyway. So I don't even know where the electricity is going to be coming from. In the UK, our national grid's about had it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been updated in 50 years. It can't cope now. So you get power cuts if everyone switches their kettle on when it's adverts in their favourite soap opera.
Yeah, one of the big electric car guys that I follow is a guy Jack Rickard, and he talks about this heavily because he says he's laid out the data, and he said what the power companies have projected is the increasing demand of electricity to go over time. However, all of our devices have become much more electrically efficient to switching to LED lighting. You used to have incandescents that use 100 watts, and now you're using 5 maybe with LED lighting. And then so you think about all that, the power demand has not increased; it's actually gone down. So the power companies have had to invest in this infrastructure for power generation, and they've got to recoup that cost somehow. So where does that money kind of come from? It's going to come from the consumers of the utilities. So your utility rates are going to rise.
Well, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I think the chap you spoke to, I think he's got some facts right. I think there's some bits and pieces he's slightly got wrong, because it's not so much, it's the wattage that you pay for. So even if you change a few light bulbs, there's still way more people using. I mean, for example, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's power hungry. I mean, people are using. We were just talking earlier about the processors running super hot and sucking a load of power. So, say in the 70s, people weren't using so many electronic devices. They weren't using so many tumble dryers and electric, blenders and all this sort of stuff. So you might save a little bit on the lighting, but people are still using more power today than ever before. And the thing is that the government's just not putting the money into the infrastructure, not in the quantity that's needed. But I think he is right when he says that the price of your electricity is going to go up, which is absolutely what's going to happen. And we're being set up because this is part of the, I don't want to go off topic too much, but this is part of the 5G, technocracy, smart meters, this sort of stuff, because the government wants us in a sort of monitored.
Track, trace, surveilled everywhere you go. Yeah.
You know the stuff. And unfortunately, electric cars, is part of their plan. It's part of the government's plan. They want us in electric cars. Because they can be controlled, they can be switched off, and they're dependent on you charging it up. And
yeah, man, I'm kind of with you on that. I've kind of had kind of an intuition that once your electric car could be hacked by anybody, and then your throttle could be set to max or whatever. I kind of like the. I follow this one YouTuber. His name's Engineer775, and he does a lot of stuff for prepper type things. And he put a wood gasifier and plumbed that into an old Ford pickup that he had. And that's kind of something I really want to do is get that. I got an old 76 Ford pickup that I used to drive in high school, but it's been sitting for a while. And that's a project that I'd like to get hooked up. I mean, you ain't gonna hijack that thing.
Absolutely right. I mean, if you want something that's totally off grid, that's something that can't be hacked, is go for some old diesel, and they run on anything. You chuck in some chip fat oil, they'll run on that. That's what, something simple, something without an ECU, something from say the 70s, like you say, and they can't touch you. And the government doesn't like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to the monitoring, it's like the Teslas. I don't know if you've looked into the Teslas, but there's a few YouTube channels that are hacking the Tesla. So they take the Tesla apart and see what is really going on in the electronics.
Right.
And they discovered something that was a bit creepy, that in the ECU, one of the ECUs, obviously I think everyone knows, is that there's a mobile phone basically wired into the ECU so that Tesla can dial into your car at any time. I mean, that I don't like. I don't like anyone hacking into my car or having access to the car. But what they found was a memory card inside the ECU, and thought, well, what's this? And they unplugged the memory card, and they managed to hack the memory card. And inside, the Tesla had been randomly recording your personal journeys, and then sending this stuff straight back to Tesla. And I'm going, whoa, that's an overstep of the mark. I don't want people watching where I'm going, and no, I
Yeah.
don't want that frightening stuff. That is 1984. That's Orwellian. You don't want that.
Yeah.
So you've got to look a bit deeper. I mean, everyone gets on board with electric cars and they think it's good for the environment, but in reality, when you do the research, they're not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not good for the environment, these electric cars.
Yeah, I guess
But-
it kind of depends. Like, if I was gonna, because Tesla's put all these sophisticated electronics in it, maybe a DIY electric car would be not as susceptible to those things, and you can
Yes.
control the
Yeah.
amount of sophistication that you put into the car.
Absolutely. You'd have to put in your own ECU, not fit Wi-Fi or anything like that, and then you would be much safer. But if you're buying a mass-produced electric car, they've all basically got spyware in them. You know.
Yeah, John
I mean-
McAfee is a big proponent of that.
Yeah.
He says everything is hackable, and he said there's no real cybersecurity. The only thing that you can do is look at the people that are viewing your stuff or have got into your network or whatever. He says there's a 13-year-old in another country could just hack your vehicle whenever they wanted to. Really, going into the
Right.
future.
He's right. I don't like that at all. I like my privacy. And I don't want anyone hacking my car. I don't want any of that information, getting out at all in any way. I mean, I don't like. I might even give up the smartphone. I've got a smartphone, and I just don't like the data mining on that. I'm getting sick of it. I don't use Google anymore. I use the Brave browser.
Yeah.
Because Google's data mining. Unfortunately, I'm still on Facebook, but I want to give that up because that's stealing all my data.
Yeah. I've gone down the same road. I've shifted over to like DuckDuckGo as my search engine. Use Brave browser. I still have to use the Google browser. Somehow I haven't figured out how to interact that with my OBS software to do these podcasts, because I like to show. Like right now, I'm showing your profile through the web browser, and Google Chrome is the only one that I can actually display that on my OBS. I still got to do some troubleshooting on that. So there's still some kinks in some of the early stuff, but we talked a little bit about that before the show, and just talking about how, the systems, we need to build the new systems that make the old system obsolete with the.
Yes, we do.
Buckminster Fuller. And as soon as these systems become more compelling than what's currently out there, then people will flock away from them, I think.
Yes. I mean, the thing is I agree with you totally that, yes, I mean, things like YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, all those need to be dumped. You can't fix them. And even if they say they're fixed, I'm not going back. So we need something new. And I like the blockchain technology. I like it. It's got to be decentralized. That's one reason I like Bitcoin, because it's the only crypto that is decentralized.
Yeah.
But the problem we've got is, even if you move from one platform to another, is you've still got government is the threat that will still chase you down. And what worries me is, if we go to different platforms, then there's nothing stopping the government from just shutting you down anyway, and just shut down the platform and just say you're not allowed on the internet. A bit like North Korea. A lot of people think they have a free internet today, but we don't.
Right.
In the UK, we're censored. I think it's about 14% of the internet is censored in the UK. So
Yeah.
I've only got access to 86% of the internet.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Patient
You know-
Zero does bring up a good point. Let's not confuse the blockchain with privacy. The blockchain is truly a public ledger, so everything is public because it has to. It's fully auditable. But there are privacy-centered cryptocurrencies like Monero, and that obfuscate. They're about obfuscation, so they can still, have the ledger, but it's completely obfuscated. So, I think
Yes.
I've kind of come to that kind of conclusion is that privacy may be more about obfuscating your data, and so. I mean, we're giving all of our data up to these things, right? And so you can even obfuscate your own data by jambling up and sending out, just like disinformation, essentially, just like the government does.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's always people, because there's VPN technology, and we have privacy-centered things. There's a guy that created a project called Freeos. He was Bob Stanley, and he created the Free the Net project back in the 90s to try to create a private internet. But they've launched Freeos, which is they created kind of a private gateway using the Tails operating system that you can load into your computer, and you can operate on kind of a more privacy-focused internet, essentially.
Okay. I mean, it's all good technology. I mean, this is what I like. I mean, going back to the VPNs, it's at this. I mean, the thing is how can you trust them? You don't 100% know. I mean, there was a time that everyone trusted Google, and now we don't. So even if you're going through a third party, you can't be 100% certain that those VPNs are completely secure or completely trustworthy. And even if they are, it's only a matter of time before the government says we're going to have to regulate it, and it's not going to be private anymore. That's what worries me. It's like you can keep moving from platform to platform, but as long as there's a threat of government, you will always be winning. And
and that's why I think it's a big reason why I do what I do is because if you're totally self-sufficient, then nobody is able. You're less easily to be manipulated by governments, and so I think it's the ultimate act of disobedience to the current system is to withdraw from it and to be as self-reliant as possible going into the future here, because if we can withdraw from the system and not need to use it anymore, then it doesn't have power over us at all.
I mean, you can do that to a point, I think, but I think eventually, I mean, like in America, it's like they're bringing out more laws like you can't collect rainwater and you can't drink raw milk and all these stupid things. I mean,
there's very creative ways around this, though. There are people that are, they sell a share of the cow, so you can have you own the cow, so then you're able to get the raw milk from it because you can consume your own cow's milk. So there's creative ways. It's just like it's just always holding that idea in your head is that there's creative ways around the system and ways to do it way better to leave it behind.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about taking the system down?
I mean, that's a big thing that I got involved with the Libertarian Party this last year. Went to the Libertarian National Convention to support Adam Kokesh. That is trying to he's trying to be the bankruptcy agent for the federal government and to dissolve the federal government and bring it back to localized governments, starting with the states. So it would be a good step in the right direction. And that's why I put my support behind him. So, So if I was gonna vote at all, I'd vote for that guy. But I guess that's still kind of giving your power over to
That's
the government
right.
some way. So it's a very ethical thing that's kind of conflicted. It's very conflicting. But and that's why a lot of people in the freedom anarcho-capitalist movement have kind of had problems with Adam Kokesh because he's trying to, maybe claim some of that power, but to give it up.
Yeah.
And so it's really a catch-22, but it's I think it's a good step in the right direction personally.
Yeah, it gets people thinking. I mean, I've been on this subject many, many years about, ending the system, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite easy, and it's surprisingly easy. And
Yeah.
I'm surprised that many people haven't even thought it. But the government system, has an Achilles heel. Well, actually, it has two, if you include the financial system.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a bit off topic here about cars, but I just thought I'd touch on this. Now, this might surprise a lot of people, is that in America and in the UK, we actually have a voluntary tax system,
Yeah.
which means government in the UK and in America does not have the right to force anyone to pay tax or you have become a slave. Now, if that message could get out, if more people just knew that and says, hang on a minute, you can't force me to pay tax because it's unconstitutional, or in the UK it goes against the Magna Carta,
Yeah.
then the government would lose its power because it would lose its funding. And so instead of attacking the government, you just don't feed the government.
Yeah, absolutely. Max Egan talks about this quite a bit, and his proposal says if everybody could just didn't go to work for a week, took work without pay, those income receipts wouldn't be coming in, and that would put this whole thing to rest if everybody could just do that.
I've heard that argument before, where it's like, don't go to work for a week or don't shop for a week, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, the sentiment's correct, but it would never work because you wouldn't be hurting the central bank. So, and they're the ones that they're just laughing. In fact, the only people you would be hurting is poor people. If poor people don't go to work for a week, then they can't make ends meet. Most people live wage packet for wage packet. And if you don't spend, if you decide not to shop, well, all you're doing is you're delaying your shopping. So you might not shop for a week, then you'll do two lots the following week. So you're not really, you're not hurting the government. You're not hurting the central banks. Because at the end of the day, the central banks own the governments anyway. The governments are just puppets. So it's got to be the tax. People have just got to wake up and go, hang on a minute. We use a voluntary tax system, because if enough people all at the same time decided we're not actually paying this tax, we're not filling in with tax returns, we're not paying the 20% VAT,
Yeah.
that would end it.
Yeah, that's a big thing that Mark Passio says. He says the most powerful word in our English language is the word no. And
That's right.
Yeah. And
No.
and if we all just said no, then we're not going to pay, then they can't come after all of us.
They can't come after all of us, and we need to do it in a certain way. We've got to plant the seed into everybody's mind. It has to be, everyone should be talking about it and discussing it and going, oh, I didn't know it was a voluntary system. I didn't until I discovered it a few years ago when I was doing my research. And it's voluntary. There's YouTube videos. It's in America, it's absolutely positively voluntary system. So if enough people, and when I say enough, you only need about 3% of the population. If 3% of the population all turn around and says we're not paying tax and we're united, we're organized, and all the rest of it, then the rest will follow. And
the one of the big problems is, especially in the United States, and people that I'm kind of around, especially in the area I am, which is one of the big DoD centers of the United States, is everybody relies on the government for a job, and they think that they have some kind of duty to pay taxes, and it's a prideful thing that they pay taxes. No, it's not prideful at all. It's becoming a slave.
It is a slave. You're right. You are a slave. That's what it is. And the average American, the average British person has no idea just how much tax they are paying. I mean, in America, they think they're paying 50% tax. And I say, no, you're paying way more than that. I mean, in the UK, the average person, depending on their spending habits, is paying 80% tax. So 80% of their salary every year is tax. And that's not even including inflation, which is a stealth tax. So the average person doesn't know. But then even these people who say, oh, I'm going to pay tax because it's the right thing to do, and they're going to do it under duty, even those, if they knew they could get away with not paying tax, then they would. Okay,
Oh,
so
absolutely. In private conversations, people try to, they try to get around taxes any way they can. But then, it's very hypocritical to talk about this like that. And I try to point these things out, but you do become very disliked. I've become a very disliked person for talking about a lot of these things with my immediate group. But I think it's important to talk about them and to plant the seeds, like you said.
Plant the seed, just get people talking about it, and let that seed grow out and get more and more people discussing it. I'm noticing more and more people have figured that out, and they're going, you know what, this tax is actually a voluntary system. That's all you need. You just sit back and just wait, and then that's it. I mean, it sounds super simple, and it is. And then, we're sort of going off topic a little bit. But,
we tumbled down the rabbit hole on this one for
we have a
sure.
little bit. We've gone off topic about supercars and stuff. Hope people listening don't mind, but
we have a lot of people that are freedom-minded people here. Of course, we're using cryptocurrencies and
that's fine.
and we do have several in the audience, and these things are often discussed on a lot of these shows that we have on MSP Waves.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I just, people are tuning in, talk about supercars, and then we've suddenly started to talk about tax and government stuff.
Yeah, it all kind of relates to where I want to go and what I'm trying to do, and the people that I try to bring on are just people that are doing inspirational things and trying to build the systems that are going to replace this system. So. And that's the key, I think, is actually understanding, like you're saying, these things are voluntary, raising your consciousness level, and deciding that we have real power to not be apathetic, to understand that we have real power to make change.
That's right, we do.
But we have to take the actions. We have to take the actions to make the future different.
It's up to us. I mean, it's quite serious because I don't think that many people realise just how many freedoms have been taken away from us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the government's taken just about everything away from us now. We haven't got much left. I mean, I was talking to someone in Denmark the other day, and he's a subscriber to my channel, and he was telling me that basically the government there has banned kit cars. So he said he'd love to build one. It's been his passion to build one, but he's never going to be able to do it. Not in Denmark. It's banned.
Oh, wow.
It's you look at all these people, and
but to a point, there are a lot of people that make that their excuse. But I kind of think that you should just go for it and ask for permission later. And then there are a lot of things in the law system that you can, if they do take you to court, then you can put the proof of claim. They have to prove their claim of their jurisdiction for one part, and then they have to give you some kind of written affidavit to tell you that it's true. Is something that I've researched because it is based on an old maritime law. Is all current law, at least in the U.S. It may be a little bit different in different places, but they've based it on maritime law, and it kind of all goes back to biblical principles as well, where you have to you have to be rightly in your disputes. Like you can't try to badmouth your opponent or whatever. You have to accept their claim, but on condition. You have to lay a condition on it that they give you a proof of claim in some kind of written format, proving their position in a public way. And so we have that power if we can look into, some of these things. There was a guy that was going to the Red Pill Expo this year that did a talk on that, and he kind of tested it out, and he did it with the 5G. And he says this is a way that the public can go after the rollout of 5G is by putting a commercial, having to have a proof of claim that they prove that this is completely healthy and it's not going to harm anyone. And otherwise they have to have a monetary compensation for if they're lying.
That's right.
And so, or if they can't give their proof of claim. And so this puts real pressure on the companies that are trying to roll this out. So instead of trying to, you can use that system against them as well.
Yeah, you can. I have a feeling the government's going to step in and they're going to change the legislation to make these 5G companies exempt from prosecution, a bit like what they've done with the vaccine company. Because you can't sue a vaccine company now for, if your child is damaged.
In the U.S. They have the vaccine courts, and they jumble you up in there, and they're very hush-hush and all that stuff, too. They don't get talked about. There's a Dr. Judy Mikovits that talks about that a lot on a podcast I really like to listen to is Ernest Hancock's Freedoms or Declare Your Independence podcast, and they go into that a lot on there.
Yes, I mean, and then you find that these vaccine courts, so-called, not real courts, and it's a taxpayer that pays out anyway. So even the companies never pay out because what they did is they added a tax onto the vaccines, the cost of the vaccines. And then they just collect all this tax up and they put it into a bank account or whatever. And then if there is a claim, it goes to these fake vaccine courts, like you say, and it's dragged out for many, many years. And eventually you might get a bit of this money, but it's too late because your child has just been damaged with all the formaldehyde or aluminium that's in the vaccines.
Right.
But I think what they're going to do with the 5G companies, I think they're going to just change the legislation, and it doesn't matter. I mean, don't forget the government wants and needs this 5G in place so they can get their network set up because they want to bring in technocracy. This is what it's all about. This is what smart meters are all about. Electric smart meters and smart TVs and all this.
Right, the Internet of Things.
Yeah, the Internet of Things. You're right, absolutely.
It's a surveillance program.
It is.
To get into every little minute detail of what you're doing in your life.
Yep, everything, and it's going to incorporate a social credit system, just like China.
Yeah, it's already kind of happening. I know. I watched some of an interview with Cliff High and Bix Weir, and Cliff High had something called the web bot where he was kind of scrounging the web for a bunch of different people's sentiments on like Twitter and Facebook and all these things. And it used to be like spikes up and down and kind of like, you could kind of make some predictions based on where the sentiments were based on those spikes. But now they've rolled out these algorithms that have kind of made people self-censor themselves. And so it's not the spikes anymore. It's like these even waves. And so he said he's not able to make any accurate predictions based on that information anymore because those algorithms are actually causing self-censorship over these platforms.
Yes. Yeah, I can completely agree with that. Yeah. I think everyone's beginning to self-censor.
Right, and that's why it's so important to have these outlets for and to stay censorship resistant and decentralized. So
yes, I mean decentralized is a good step in the right direction. I mean, I look at it. I just think we've got to take the system down. We've got to take these governments down. They're never going to stop. There's never going to be a day that the government's going to say, you know what, we've taken enough tax money. Yeah, we've made enough regulations. Let's not bother anymore. No, it's going to continue and continue until it ends up in a war. This is how empires always collapse. Like Rome and all the rest. Every single empire goes the same way.
Yep.
And the difference now, it's these people in government, they're psychopaths. They're hungry for power, and they just don't care. They don't care about us in any way, and they're never going to give up. So,
Right, and that's the thing that I think is very important for people to realize is the true nature of government. True nature of government is just a monopoly of force. It is. That's all it is, and it's just no matter what kind of government that you install. I think it's just kind of a spiritual thing that we have to come to is do we want to rule ourselves or do we want to abdicate that over to somebody else? And that's kind of the choice, I think. And maybe we won't, maybe we'll kind of be trapped in this perpetual cycle until there's some kind of maybe spiritual evolution, until we can take that power back on ourselves.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you. And there's a lot of people waking up. I mean, there's a lot of people saying we do not need government in any way. And I agree. We would have world peace if we didn't have government. No
right,
question.
because they're the only ones that are really attacking other people.
Yeah.
If you talk to people in the United States don't want to go to war.
Of course not.
People in other countries don't want to go to war. It's these governments that go send people off to die for no reason.
That's right. And then you find out that all these wars were pre-organized before the first bullet was shot. They're all fake. They're all based on false flags. Gulf of Tonkin at Vietnam, Pearl Harbor that got America into the Second World War. I mean, the Second World War was completely fake. The First World War was completely fake.
Yeah, what was it? The sinking of the Lusitania. Yeah, and that was all pre-engineered. Yeah,
engineered. It was organised by governments. And it's always the same reason. The reason why we had the Second World War with Adolf Hitler is because Adolf Hitler was turning his back on the global financial system, exactly what Saddam Hussein was doing.
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, he was. That's kind of a little known fact that he was against the banks at the time and stuff.
That's right. Not sort of like saying I support Adolf Hitler or anything.
Right.
I'm not saying. But I'm just saying, I like to get.
Yeah, he took it he took it in a bad direction.
Oh, definitely.
Still trying to use the monopoly of force of government to make things happen.
I mean, he used socialism to con the German people into voting for him. Socialism never works.
Yeah, man, I could talk to you about this stuff for hours, man. We're on the same level of this for sure. Yeah, so.
Brilliant. Went completely off topic there. We're talking about supercars.
Well, I think it is kind of, maybe it's an engineering thing, is because you can kind of see these things that government does, and you're like, man, if you guys got out of the way, we could do this way better.
Yeah, if you got the government out of the way, we'd all be living Star Trek lives. We'd all have transporters, and we'd be on different planets, and we would be so far ahead. Couldn't even imagine what we could do.
Man, yeah, I'm totally on board, and I know we will get there if we keep, if people like ourselves keep trying to raise the consciousness of others, and then just try to live the life that we preach and get outside of the system as much as we can.
Yeah, I'm trying.
It's difficult. It takes a while to get yourself set up and to get everything in the right direction. But there are a lot of like-minded people that are starting these things, and I think it's gonna get easier and easier to withdraw from the system.
Yeah, this is what I would look for is some sort of organisation. If we've got a lot of people talking at the moment, but I can't see much organisation. Let's get a plan together. That's the way I look at it. I'd love to do that. Get involved in that. Let's take it to the system. Let's take it down. If we can't do it for ourselves, can we do it for the next generation? Because they're the ones that are going to get it.
Yeah, I love this. I ran across, it's an old Greek saying that said, civilization grows when old men plant seeds whose shade they know they will never rest in. And
Mhm.
and I think that's just the mentality that we have to have. Maybe we'll never see the fruition of that, but we can plant the seeds, and we can, give the
Yeah.
pushback, and we can, you know, build the future into a better direction.
Yes.
And so yeah, man, it's going to be a long process. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think just getting the seeds planted, and then probably
Yeah.
the next generation. I think that's why it's important also is to have a good family, and to start a family, and to educate your children so that they can carry the torch, and
Yeah.
they don't have to have all the brainwashing that we grew up with the public indoctrination systems.
Oh my God, yeah. There's another aspect. We could talk about that for hours. The
Yeah.
useless that the government so-called provides.
Yeah. There's self-education, I think, is going to be, a big thing going into the future. And that's something we talked about actually with your car before
Yes.
the show, is that, creating some kind of masterclass course on how to design the supercar, and walking
Yeah.
through every step of this thing.
Yeah.
Is that something that you'd be interested in doing?
I'd love to do something like that. Yeah. I mean, I'd love people to get involved. I know, a lot of the people I speak to are living in different countries, but if there's anyone local, come down and get involved. Or if someone's overseas and they think they can get involved, not a problem. Yeah, I'd love to do something like that. I mean, it's quite difficult. It's surprisingly difficult to do these videos on your own.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't quite ready for it. I think it takes me about 4 days to make one video.
Yeah.
Based on the prototype, because you've got to plan it. You sort of like write a script. I have to find the video footage that I want to use, and then setting up the camera, getting all that, getting the angles, running back and forth. Am I still in shot? Is it in focus? And then there's multiple takes because I'm still not comfortable in talking to the camera. My brain stops working. As soon as I look at the camera, I go, what am I going to say? I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's one of the guys, Mark Piacio, talks about that a lot. He's like, I don't have any PowerPoint fairies coming in to make all my slides for me.
Yeah.
You gotta get out there, and you gotta do it. And it is a big process, man. I've just got into it myself, started to create some videos, and
Yeah, well,
just
how long does it take for yourself? To put together a video.
yeah. I started using that Blackmagic Resolve, DaVinci Resolve,
Okay.
video editing thing, and just started to teach myself that stuff, and just some basic editings. I'm just cutting things, and getting the transitions in there and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot to learn, but there's a lot of videos out there you can teach yourself. So
That's right. And this is why I love the free market, because I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm self-taught. I mean, just about everything I do, I'm self-taught. I mean, I've built this workshop myself. I've renovated my own house and all the rest of it.
yeah.
But if you're not too sure on something, it's like I had to try and teach myself how to use GIMP. But then you just go onto YouTube or something like that, even though you don't really like YouTube. And then there's people on there, and they show you how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, the guys that have done, like Tony Robbins, these motivational speaker guys, self-education guys, they're saying that a lot of people, the sentiment is, and what they've seen is that the rise in self-education is becoming more and more prominent, because people are looking for people that are street smart in different areas, instead of going to a college where, you're not guaranteed anything coming out of a college, and then you've spent all that money for no reason. And the market is flooded with people with degrees that have no real world experience, and people don't want to hire them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they've just got a massive debt at the end of it. So they've got all this student debt. I think in America it's like 1.4 trillion in student debt.
Oh,
So
that's
you've got all this
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. And then they've got all these degrees and they're worthless.
Yeah.
No one's hiring. You know, if you take I mean, I think it's actually a real degree. Basket weaving underwater, and I thought that was fake. I thought, no. I looked it up. No, yeah, you can. You can get a degree in how to weave baskets underwater. So, what sort of job are you going to get with that?
Oh yeah.
If everyone takes the same degree course, then it floods the market. So, of course, wages come down.
Well, in my opinion, you really just want to cover your basics of survival. So you want to, you should know how to build. You should know how to build things. You should be able to repair things. And you should know how to grow your own food. You should know how to filter your own water, collect your own water. And that's a lot of, where I'm going is to do that self-education type content, and then, be able to help others, be able to get off and be more self-reliant and self-sufficient. And that way, I think that, demonstrating that myself, then people can see that and see that example. And then if they wish to do that themselves, they can move in that direction with the knowledge.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So you talked about offering the DIY kit and maybe getting into like production with this kit. Would you be able to like ship this all over the world? Is that something that you've looked at or thinking about?
That's true. Yeah, I've thought. The thing is, as well, when you're building your own supercar, you're designing it, you do have to follow a lot of regulation. The height of the headlights, indicators, this sort of thing, seat belts, all this sort of thing. So you can't just guess at it. You've got to follow these regulations. So the car is designed to be able to be built in multiple countries. So you should be able to build it. America shouldn't be a problem, and UK, obviously, it's designed to be built in the UK. And UK is quite strict. There's quite a lot of regulation.
Yeah. So what do you have to do to prove that the structure is solid and is it just your finite, like a finite element analysis that you present or something, or will you have to go through some testing on that or something?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you have to go through some. It's different per country, but in the UK, your car, once you build your car, you can build your own car in the UK, but before it can go on the road, it has to go through what is called an IVA, which is an individual vehicle assessment.
Okay.
So you give it usually takes about a day, take the car down on a trailer, and then an engineer goes over it, and they check all sorts of things. It's like in the UK, we have like an MOT, and I think you have something similar in the
like
America.
a Department of Transportation type thing.
Yeah, that's right. And then they just check everything and make sure it's to code. And if it passes, then you get a registration certificate, and then you can put a number plate on it, and then you can tax it, and then you can insure it, and then you can put it on the road. So It sounds easy, but it isn't easy.
Yeah.
But I've done all the work for people. So if people want to build my car, as a kit, I've already done all the work. So as long as they follow my instructions and say, this is how you build it, do this ABC, then it will pass.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't detour away from the build manual, then you should have no problems.
Cool.
But yeah, it depends on the country. Different countries have slight regulations. This car can be adjustable depending on what country it goes to.
Okay.
If I ever get to that stage.
Yeah. I saw that you did a lot of you had to do some like custom modifications to get the engine to all work out and everything. So I guess it's the Audi engine, huh?
That's right. Yeah.
But you've had to add some or customize some different components in the thing and find cheaper components and things like that. That's
right. To keep the costs down. I mean, the original engine, the V6, was in the front of the Audis. Obviously, it's under the bonnet or the hood.
Right.
And I've done is I've put the engine in the back, so it's now mid-mounted, like a Ferrari,
Yeah.
Lamborghini. It's now in the back, which means the gearbox is obviously in the back, so the
Right.
gear lever doesn't reach. So I have to build my own cable gear change. So you can now change gears. All the wiring looms no longer reach, so that has to be rewired.
Oh wow.
Um,
Now, how do you
yeah.
how do you do that? Do you just put splices into the wiring harness and extend it, or do you have to do a totally new wiring harness?
Yeah. On this one, I've managed to splice in an extension. So
Okay.
I've used original loom from the donor car, and then obviously I might make it sounds easy, but you've just got to take your time. You've got to write down the color codes of all the cables, strip it apart, get it out on the floor, map it out, and then use the correct wire gauge. And I couldn't get the colors to match because sometimes you don't get the exact colors. But as long
Yeah.
as you make what colors you use, then you should know where how the loom works out. But if
Yeah.
you take your time, you can do it. You extend the loom so it now reaches to the back of the car. I made some changes. Electric mirrors work differently. The rear defrost now actually works on the windscreen instead of the rear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I made some changes to it, and I was quite proud of myself because when I turned the key, it all worked. There was no wiring faults. So I thought,
Oh man, that's the worst for being a mechanical engineer, guys. That something happens in the electrical system and you got to troubleshoot it.
shooting electrics can be.
Yeah, I don't know if to me they're just magical fairies running around in those wires.
Yeah, like most people, they go, "Oh no, I don't want to do the."
Oh no, yeah, I've in high school I took an electronics class and I'm so thankful I did that because being a mechanical engineer, I like to see the components move and everything, but it is about all about flow and just thinking about it in terms of water was what really helped me because I guess I'm really visual and I can't see the electrons moving around, but but I yeah, exactly. I can feel them. I get shocked by them.
Yeah, that's right. I've had a few of those every time.
Yeah, that was actually one of we talked a little bit before the show, and I was on the Formula Race team in college, and that was my part of my job was to work on a wiring harness. So I understand how complicated those get. That is it is quite a chore.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when it all works out.
Yeah, really good.
When you crank it up and the thing runs and you're just like, yes, I brought it to life.
Yeah, that's right. That's how I felt. You're chopping it up and you're making your notes and you're putting it all together. And it can take, it took me about 6 weeks to do all that. And it worked. And I thought, phew, thank God for that. It was quite good.
Yeah.
Like I said, runs and drives. I've had it up and down the street.
That is amazing, man. That is really incredible that you've taken on this project all yourself and gotten through pretty much all of it. It seems.
Yeah, it's all worked out. The windscreen wipers, all the lights work, that sort of stuff. Speedo, rev counter, everything.
So does your YouTube channel, does it document the entire build process, or do you just have a lot of pictures? You said you started the project right before YouTube really got going, but you have everything fully documented on all your videos and everything?
That's right.
Even the wire part and building the fishbone and all that?
Yeah, I've got some photos of that showing the wishbone construction for the plug. I've got some video. I've got little bits of video, not much, but mostly photos of the wiring, that sort of thing. But like you say, when I started this project, there was YouTube didn't exist, and I was not even thinking about doing a YouTube channel. In fact, I was thinking about doing a book. Thought this is one reason I took a load of photos. So if I finished the car, I was planning on doing a book, and people could buy the book with a load of photos in it.
Yeah.
This is how that sort of. I still might do that.
Yeah. I would love it.
Yeah, it's I mean, I bought a book that someone else has built their supercar, and I bought his book. So and I read it from cover to cover. Found it fascinating.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, the YouTube channel. What I'm doing now, is trying to show people how I built it. So, there's some video, some still images, and I'm just going through and
Yeah,
why I built.
I like how you do the videos where you're bringing in the kind of the other explanations behind it, and talking about, because I watched your one video on how you put the plate on the bottom of the car and how that works with the aerodynamics, where you want to prevent the turbulence, and it actually increases the downforce by having a flat plate on the bottom.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's what
lowers the pressure, right? Going across the bottom of the car, and that way you can actually increase the downforce of the air on the car.
That's right. Yeah, it's where it all begins. If you're trying to make an aerodynamic car, you've got to start with the floor.
Yeah, but does that make it pretty difficult to do maintenance on that thing?
You think so? For an average car, yes.
Yeah.
My car, no, because I've actually designed it in such a way that everything is accessible from above.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, you don't even have to jack the car up. In fact, it's so easy that, in fact, a friend of mine, and he looked at my front wheel and everything, he says he reckons he could change the brake pads on this thing without jacking the car up or even taking the wheel off. And that's how easy it is to work on this thing.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that was my main goal, because I think we spoke about this earlier, before we started the podcast. But I worked on loads and loads of different cars in my time, and they've always been a pig to work on. You can never get to that bolt, never get to this part or an alternator or starter motor.
Yeah.
And I did not want that with my car. I wanted everything to be easy. So you just get to it, no problem. I mean, replacing the clutch on this thing, you could do it in 30 minutes. It's so easy.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a supercar, but it's like Lego. You can take it apart and put it back together again. And anyway.
Super maintainable. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the plan.
So you're a big Audi fan. Is that one of the reasons why you liked Audis, or what was the reason that you like Audis so much?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Audi. I like one of my favourite cars is the Audi UR Quattro, which is the rally car, short wheelbase.
Yeah.
It's got a 5-cylinder, I remember watching them in the 80s, in the Group B rallying, and it's like, wow, I just love the Audis. So I've always liked Audis, and I like Volkswagens in particular. Started out with Volkswagens and moved on to Audis.
Okay.
So the reason I went for the Audi is because of its gearbox configuration, because Audi is the only car out there that actually has a front transaxle gearbox. It's an inline transaxle gearbox, you see.
Okay.
So you can so you can take the engine and the gearbox as one unit from the front of the car, and you can put it straight into the back of the car, and a lot of the engineering has been sorted out. You don't have to trying to adapt a different gearbox onto the engine, for example. It's all done. It's nice and simple, it's cheap, and it's effective.
Oh,
so
nice.
That was my main choice. That's the main reason I went for the Audis. And also, of course, Audis make big power. You get twin turbo Audis for cheap.
Yeah. Wow. They're very plentiful over there in the UK, huh?
Yeah. In the UK, people can't afford the big cars.
Yeah.
They're driving the little 1.2 little hatchbacks because they just can't afford the big stuff. So the big luxury cars, they depreciate down to virtually nothing because you can't afford the petrol, you can't afford the tax, and you can't afford the insurance.
Wow. So that might be like I don't know how much it costs if you could pick up a super cheap car in the UK, you could go sell it somewhere else or something and make some money off of it, huh?
I know. It's if I could sell it overseas, the only thing is we're all right-hand drive over here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, I have had a guy that they do autocross, and
Oh yeah,
they imported a he imported a vehicle from Japan that had the
yes.
right hand drive for his autocross stuff, and yeah, it was yeah, people do them, but yeah, it's definitely
I imported,
some taking some getting used to.
yeah, if you're used to left-hand drive, then it just, you've got to get used to it. For example, in America, I think all your Skylines, if you want a Skyline, then they're all right-hand drive. I don't think you can get a left-hand drive Skyline. So
Yeah.
there's certain cars that are only right-hand drive. I think it's the same for the UK. If we want a E30 BMW M3, the original one, you can't get that in right-hand drive or left-hand drive.
Huh.
Think. But yeah, there's certain cars, So I think for you, some of the Jap spec stuff is right-hand drive only.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imported a Nissan 300ZX twin turbo from Japan years and years ago. Oh, got to be going back 20 odd years now.
Yeah.
But that's when the Japanese the yen collapsed. And of course,
okay.
And the pound was strong, so you could buy cheap supercars in Japan and bring them over here for half the price.
Oh, okay.
So that was
So is that part of your past? Did you do some fixing up and selling of different cars?
just dabbled, really.
Yeah.
Not really as a trade or a business, but as a hobby. I would buy something and play with it and have fun with it and work on it when I broke it and sell it on and get something different.
Yeah.
But I've always liked to get a good deal on a car. I don't like paying top price. So
Yeah.
I like to go to...
What was the best deal on a car that you ever had?
Whoa! Wow! Yeah. Let me see. Let me see. I think that 300 was pretty good. I got that for half price because I think they were about 12.5 grand at the time. I think I paid about 6. So
Wow.
That was cheap. All right, we're talking 20 something years ago, so 6 grand was quite a bit of money back then. But
yeah.
Getting it for half price, that was cheap. That was a good one.
So you've kind of become pretty master at doing the deals, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I like to get a good deal. I think the TVR, I bought a TVR and I got that cheap. And
that's a mid-engine vehicle, isn't it?
the TVR, that's front engine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a British company, TVR, and fiberglass, and made in Blackpool, and monster cars. If you want a car that is a handful, no driver's aids, no ABS, no traction control, insanity,
Pure mechanical.
Yeah, absolutely. I had in mine. It had a 4.2 race tuned flat plane crank V8, and it was a very light car. And this thing, I had it tuned a little bit, so it had about 400 brake horsepower. But because it was so light, it was rocket ship. It was an animal, and
wow,
it was electric. It's the fastest accelerating car that I've ever owned.
Yeah.
And the noise it made, oh wow, you could hit me 2 miles away, it was a monster.
Wow.
That was awesome. They were awesome. Terrible cars on the engineering side of things, always breaking down, bits falling off. Bits break down. Half the time I would take it out, it would come back on a trailer.
Yeah, wow.
So, when it was working, it was great fun.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, that's one of the things that I guess in engineering that I got involved with when one of my first parts of my career was doing a lot of testing of parts and components and reliability. And when working in that realm, you realize how everything is actually designed to fail at a certain
Yes.
point with planned obsolescence,
Oh
and
yeah, that's the lesson.
that makes you so pissed off when you learn that too.
It does, I mean, going back to the electric cars and hybrids and stuff like that, I mean, they're really planned to only last about 10 years.
Right.
You look at the Toyota Priuses, the first ones, and they are worthless because the battery is at the end of its life and the charger unit is at the end of its life.
Well, and then
So,
we also talked about maintenance too. A lot of these components are designed so that you have to have a special tool. They want you to take it into the shop to get maintained so that you don't work on it.
it's not going back to the Teslas. I mean, but, it's like he's got it locked up. You can't do anything to his cars. You can't go to a third party person to fix it. You got to go to a main dealer and you got to pay their prices. And
Yeah, that's a big issue with those right now is that you can only get a certified Tesla technician to work on the cars, so they're holding back the maintenance. So a lot of insurances are having a hard time insuring people with Teslas because if there's a problem with it, you have to take it to a specialized technician, and the repair cost is almost the price of the car. So
yeah, you did right. It's you have a fender bender, a scrape on these Teslas, and it's like £30,000 to put right because you've got to go to Tesla to have it done, and it's just making the insurance absolutely astronomical.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the Jack Rickard guy, the EVV blog, electric vehicle blog guy talks about is they're reverse engineering these Teslas to get it out to the public on how you can mess with them and stuff. But that was one of the big things that he talked about was that if they opened it up to the the mechanic or other people, then they could actually sell a lot more Teslas because then they'd actually help those prices for the repair costs come way down.
Yes, that's right. If you let the free market get involved and you get third-party dealers who reduce the price, it makes the car cheaper to maintain. But I don't think Elon Musk is all about that. He wants control. He wants everything. It's like Apple phones, or Apple devices.
Yeah.
Did the same thing with the Apple customers. You've got to go to an Apple dealer to have anything fixed or repaired.
Right.
So
that's why I think I'm super big into the open source engineering efforts that are going on. There's a guy here in the U.S. that has a place in Missouri. He started a project called Open Source Ecology, and they're creating a ton of industrial tools and manufacturing equipment, and they've open sourced all of their builds. And so it's the hardware version of open source in software. And I'm super about that and getting the knowledge out to people because, that way I think we can rapidly innovate because you can have people from all over that could take your idea, make it better, and then everybody kind of quit. I kind of call it collaborative competition or cooperative competition. So it's like all these ideas can play out like in the free market, and then it's a way for people's creativity to start flowing, and somebody may have thought of something that you would never have thought about being so close to your own project.
That's right. I'm all for that. I mean, I love the idea, and like you say, it's like working together but also competing at the same time, which is fun. It's like enjoy sports and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because the guys that do, the guys that are doing their the software, I mean, especially here on Steemit too, you can, if you write a bit of code, then you can put it up on GitHub as a request, and then they can accept your code or not use it, and then you kind of have some clout behind your name, right? You have a little bit of like, heck yeah, I got this little piece in this blockchain.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm all for that. I like sharing stuff, and I might not know all the right answers. So you put it out there, and someone might have a better answer than me, and I'll go, yeah, and I'll work together on things. But of course, the government doesn't want that. They have to regulate everything and control everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So was it difficult getting started with this project? What was the key in getting started on this thing?
A lot of research. I mean, a lot of reading, because I had to basically get all the regulations. So I knew what the parameters were. So I had to do a lot of that. I mean, I did a few years research before I even began the build.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I had to save the money up. That's one thing. I had to get the money up. So I had to put the money. So I saved the money up before I even started the build. So I saved the money, did the research, come out with a plan, and bought a donor car, an old Audi estate, and got building. And I would work on it evenings, weekends, whenever I had any free time. I would do a bit. To late nights. I would. I mean, sometimes I'd be working welding at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then get 3 hours sleep, and then go to work the next day.
Yeah.
So about myself, and it was challenging. I can't say it was always fun. I mean, a lot of people think it's like fun, but sometimes there's dark times, where things aren't going right, and
it's all just you.
Yeah. It's just me in the workshop, in the garage, all by myself. And sometimes doing simple jobs took much longer because I didn't have anyone else there to help me lift. So I had to make jigs to do jobs and hold things in place. Where if I had a helper, I could just say, hold that bit of steel in place while I tack weld it in, But because I didn't have anybody, I'd have to make a jig first to hold the piece in place and then tack weld it. So sometimes it'd be 3 times as long to do a simple little job.
Oh man, I know the struggle. When building this trailer, I had to come up with this rig to be able to hoist 2 solar panels, which were close to probably they're close to 200 pounds with the frame and everything. And so I had to build this jig that I could rest it on with these really tall sawhorses, and then I had to create a pulley system where I tied some ratchet straps and connected it to all around the solar panel assembly and frame, and then I tied it off to my neighbor's fence across the street, or on the other side of my driveway, so that I could support it and ratchet it up a piece at a time, so I could get it in the right position.
I know where you're coming from. I had the same similar thing in my garage. I had to make jigs to hold the roof in place of the second donor car, and I had to get some straps in there and get the angle grinder out and all this lot. And it's almost like you're using your foot to do one thing and the other 2 hands to do the other, and you're balancing on one leg. And oh man,
yeah, if there's a will, there's a way, though.
you got to battle through. And with the welding as well, because I was doing all this work in a single garage in the UK, which is pretty small. Doing the welding, there was sometimes I had to sort of be upside down and with my legs up on the wall, and I knew I was going to burn myself because of the splatter. There's nothing really I could do, so I'd do the welding as quickly as I can, and I'd be going, ow, 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 as I was getting all this splatter on me. Nothing I could do. I knew I was going to get splattered, but hey.
Oh yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way. I did some stick welding, and I neglected to wear pants, and so I got the weld burns on my legs.
Yeah. Painful.
Yeah, definitely. I like to learn my lessons the hard way.
Same here. Battle scars, isn't it? That's the way I look at it. If you've scuffed your knuckles and you've got some burn marks from the welder, then you've done a good day's work.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, Project Supercar, we're coming up on the end of the show. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with the audience as we wrap it up here?
I can't think of anything. And well, I suppose is if you got some dreams, then chase them. At least chase them. Give it a go. You've only got one life, and even though the government wants to stop you from doing it, do it anyway.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well,
Do it anyway.
great. That's a great thing to leave on, and I appreciate your time this morning. I think your project is amazing. I am there to help you out with trying to get some crowdfunding going for this thing, and yeah, maybe get you some support there. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today. And everybody, stay tuned. Next, we have Steamwave Saturday with Crimson Clad. Talking about all things questions, taking your questions about Steemit and some of the exciting new things that are happening around here. So hang out for that, and next week we'll be back. I'll be back with a new episode of the Meadows and Makers podcast. Just a shout out to everybody that was hanging out in the audience with us today. We had CryptoPie, we had Crimson Clad, we had First Amendment, Patient Zero, Pishimod, Rondon, Zipporah. I really appreciate you guys coming to hang out for the show today. Plus all the people that may have been watching in the background. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this show and all the interaction during the show and everything. I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, let's build a brighter future together. And I'll play you guys out by Awake by Divine and Junk Feathers. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time.